Whenever me and my guests talk about paranormal things, weird stuff happens with our equipment. Today I'm talking to former singer of With Blood Comes Cleansing, Dean Atkinson. He's a paranormal investigator and a good friend of mine. So we do have most of my video and some of his video, but most of the audio is intact, and then there's some parts where even his audio goes out. So watch, tell me in the comments, was it something paranormal that caused it, or was it just a fluke? Hey, bud.
What's up, man?
It's good to see you, man.
You too. It's been a long time.
It's been a real long time. I don't even remember the last time we did see each other in person.
Yeah, just talking on Facebook, but yeah, it's been a long time since I've seen you in person.
Definitely. The last memory I have, I think, of seeing you was at, and this was forever ago, but it was like Chasing Victory CD release.
Oh,
back in Albany, Georgia.
Yeah.
That was a long time ago.
Wow.
Yeah. So that's actually kind of how I met you, was through music. And if you said, you listened to the first episode that I did with Jonathan, and that, the first time that I remember seeing you was in that story where we went to that church in Camilla. And, yeah, you kind of scared me to death at that time. I didn't know what that was, man.
I had listened to that episode and I thought about that, and I remember putting on that show. Yeah, it was at a church I went to at the time, and I remember that was a lot of fun. I guess I would say I'm sorry I scared you. That's kind of funny.
I ain't sorry, man. I got that EP that y'all had that night, and I think it might have been 2 songs on it. And we listened to it on the way home, and I didn't like that kind of music at that time because I'd never heard it. But over time, I really did fall in love with it. And then, like, because y'all would play local and, Beta Bar, Tallahassee, Big Daddy's, different places around the area, every time that you guys would be there, I'd try to go to the shows because I just got addicted to going to shows and stuff. And so, yeah, I fell in love with all of it eventually.
Yeah. It's funny that you were talking about that. I'll talk about, probably in music talk, I'm going to talk about this guy, but my cousin Stuart Atkinson, and he's like my brother, and he's only 2 weeks older than me, and he was one of the biggest musical influences ever. I wouldn't have even gotten into a lot of the music I did had it not been for him, and he and I still are constantly sending each other stuff all the time. He lives in Bainbridge. But he was just telling me somebody just uploaded that demo you're talking about to YouTube.
Are you serious?
Yes. I went back.
I'll have to find it.
It's hard for me to listen to that stuff, not musically. Honestly, all the music I did that I got to be a part of, musically, that was my favorite stuff. Because don't get me wrong, that's not hating on like with Blood Comes Cleansing or anything. I thought it was great too, but I was just more of my style that I liked was more of the like metal with like the Norwegian kind of sound and stuff.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. And as aggressive as it is with Blood Comes Cleansing, kind of pop.
Right.
Yeah.
And exactly. And so anyway, it's hard for me to listen to that stuff because that one I can listen to, but we did one demo before that, and I'd never done vocals. I just learned how to do vocals, and it is god awful. And that one itself is a little better, but I still, man, oh wow, yeah,
for sure, man. Like, I don't even know how you can make sounds like that. Like, I just learned how. I'm 40. I'm about to be 40, and I literally just learned how to like pop fry scream, where you just let your chest rattle.
Yeah.
I literally just figured that out. I've, always wanted to do it. Never was able to be a lead singer because I couldn't do it. And, I wanted to write this intro for my show, and I was like, I got to be able to do that. So I found some tutorials on YouTube, and I listened to that, and I was like, we're going to make it happen. And started listening to some Under Oath songs and running it off. And I finally caught that range, and I was like, there we go. I actually seen the Showdown at Capone's in Johnson City. And I was screaming along with that night. It was like, it was fun.
Oh, that was recent?
Yeah, it was like October.
Oh, wow. I haven't talked to those dudes in years.
Yeah. David and I can't remember. David's really the only person I ever talked to in the band, but they were all pretty cool hanging out with.
Josh, and then there's a guitarist named Travis, I think, and the bass player Eric. And some of those guys, I think, left and maybe came back. And then their original drummer, I want to say his name was Andrew, and he was the one that was on Course of Obliteration. And that dude was ripped, and he could play the drums. He was intimidating, but he
might be playing with him again. I don't know his name, but there's a dude that's like jacked, and he plays the drums with him.
And I'm telling you, like, he was the nicest dude ever. I would love to see that guy. I didn't listen to much of their stuff after Chorus. I heard some of it, but like that first album, man, was like, God, it was so good. I mean, their other stuff was good too. It wasn't as much of my style, really.
It was a little more Metallica, yeah.
Yeah, which, don't get me wrong, I love Metallica, and there's a lot of, I don't know, there's something about that first album, and I do like some metal because, I mean, Maylene's one of my favorite bands, but it's just something about that first album, I loved it.
Definitely, man. Yeah, that's always been my favorite one. I actually got it on vinyl when they released it.
Yeah,
actually, I bought it at the show because I missed out on it when it got released, and then they had some at the shows. I was like, I'm buying this.
I knew they had got back together for like Furnace Fest stuff and all that, but I didn't know that. Yeah, that's awesome, man.
Yeah, dude. So, so what got you? Like you said, Stuart got you into music, but how old were you?
When I started doing that, I grew up like, I can. It's funny because I can remember as a kid when I'd gotten into heavy music and like, do you remember RAs?
No.
Okay, it was like a thing in like in the Baptist church, RAs that stood for like Royal Ambassadors.
Oh yeah, I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, and Michael Lamb from Chasing Victory is still, all those guys. I'm still really close to all those guys, and Michael's dad was like our leader, and he passed away, but he still like one of my heroes. He was one of the funniest and best dudes ever, and so I can remember on one of the camping trips he took us, and he wouldn't have cared, but like I can remember sneaking my my Danzig cassette tape and my Metallica cassette tapes and jamming them out in the tent, when I was like, I don't know, probably like 11.
That's awesome.
And, thinking, "Oh, is this bad or something?" And so I got into that.
And I'm in the Boy Scouts at that age, and I've got boys talking about, I got 30 magazines in my tent. so I don't think yours is that bad.
Yeah, well, that's actually kind of a better, a little better story of yours, but
yeah, it is.
You rebel, huh?
I didn't say we got to look at it. I just said he said he had it.
Oh, but yeah, so I, as a kid, I got into stuff like that, and but Stuart was that kid. Like I can remember him we were like 10, and he had an Anthrax shirt.
That's cool.
He was always been into it. So, in the 90s, of course, I got real big into like, what they call the grunge scene. I was huge into Nirvana and Pearl Jam and Soundgarden, and I still listen to all those bands. And I listened to stuff throughout, but probably right before I got into all that, the first time I like real screaming stuff that I got into was in 8th grade, and I got Far Beyond Drift by Pantera. And,
oh wow!
And that was the first time I ever remember like wanting to scream.
Was
that album, and so it kind of progressed from there. And then late in high school, I was still listening to a lot of that stuff, and Stuart joined he had a punk band and that he was in. And it wound up, the vocalist in that band, Waylon Day, wound up being the guitarist in that band when Tomorrow Doesn't Come that we were talking about.
Is Waylon from like the Douglas area?
What's that now?
Was Waylon from around Douglas or somewhere?
They were all from Bainbridge.
From Bainbridge, okay. I don't know why I thought I had met him around Douglas. Maybe he played around there sometime when I was younger.
Yeah, he could have. I'm not sure.
Yeah.
But they had they had a band called the Vacants, and so that was the first exposure I'd ever had to some of that stuff. They were a straight edge band. I'd never heard of that, and so Stuart during that time introduced me to a lot of punk music I'd never heard, like Operation Ivy, Rancid, stuff like that.
Speaking of straight edge, being in church kids, that straight edge stuff, being in church kids, that was really confusing.
It was.
I thought that was Christian bands.
Right. Yeah. Oh, yeah. And then you go and yeah, exactly. And it's definitely not. I mean, there were some kids who were
some
Christians.
Were. Yeah.
Yeah. And so, I'm kind of telling a long story here, but it's really kind of how it progressed. And,
no, it's a good story. Let's go with
it. But yeah, so, going to watch those guys at shows and stuff. And Stuart, I was very, very much into my Christian faith at the time. And Stuart gave me a cassette of a No Innocent Victim. And that was my first exposure to kind of break down hardcore, beat down kind of sound. And and I just loved it and fell in love with it. And then, of course, through all that, he would play me Gorilla Biscuits and a lot of the old school hardcore bands and stuff that kind of punk, Minor Threat, all those Black Flag, all those
that really hard stuff.
Yeah. And, kind of foundational punk and hardcore bands. And so, and then there was this band. There was another Tooth and Nail band at the time called Overcome. And
I feel like I had them on a sampler album.
Yeah, I'm sure you did. Dude, they were great. And so it just kind of went from there. And as far as Stuart would always play new bands for me, and I really got into it. And of course, then after being introduced to that style, I would find bands that I liked and tell him about that kind of thing. But when Tomorrow Doesn't Come started, and it was Stuart, Waylon Day, who I was telling you about, his brother Hank Day, who actually was in Betrayed with a Kiss that became With Blood Comes Cleansing.
Okay.
And then several different bass players. Ultimately wound up having Josh Pearson as bass player, who was one of the original in Betrayed with a Kiss with Blood. But anyway, so we're all kind of linked in there. And we they had a singer named Matt, and Matt was the first person to Matt McConnell, and I still actually talked to Matt recently. I remember going to one of their shows, and he's like, "I got something I want you to hear," and he put it in. It was Zayo, Where Blood and Fire Bring Rest. And
oh yeah,
that was like a. I told somebody this before. I was like a. I'll never forget it. That was like a turning point in my life. When I heard "To Think of You," that song, it just, I'd never heard anything like it. And I was hooked on Zayo from that day forward, and they're still my favorite heavy band of this day. I'll sit here and talk all night about them if you let me. So they were heavily influenced by them and some other bands, and so I became When Tomorrow Doesn't Come's biggest fan. I would travel with them. They would like to go. They would love for me to go on the road with them for comic relief.
Comic relief.
Oh yeah, man! They love to get me going, and I can remember they would I'd get in the van first, and they would throw bottle rockets and throw them in there with me and close the van up and like because they loved my reaction. They thought and they we would all play jokes on each other and it just, especially Waylon. It's so funny because Waylon's actually a preacher now. He was he was like the king of pranks and stuff, and he loved to get me because he just thought I had the funniest reactions. And so it was
tool pranks are kind of a tradition for a lot of people.
Oh yeah, no doubt. And
what's the worst tour prank y'all ever did?
What's the worst tour prank?
Yeah, like on another band, maybe.
Oh yeah, hold on to that thought, or because I'll get so sidetracked. I'll tell you some of the prank stuff I did. Usually, any stuff I did prank wise was with blood, and it involved a plea for purging. So, but I will tell you some of that. But so that's how, when tomorrow doesn't come, I would just go with them, and I just started trying to do vocals a little bit, and I just tried to copy Dan way up from Zayo because I was like, if I could sound like that, it would be the coolest thing ever, And so
yeah,
I could do a little bit, and Matt wound up leaving when tomorrow doesn't come. We were all such good friends. They're like, Dean, you're our vocalist. And I was like, what? And they're like, yeah. And I was so excited. Like you would have thought I had joined like the freaking biggest band in the world. I was so excited. And
that's awesome, man.
Yeah, it was cool. We right away when I went and recorded the demo, and we recorded it with our buddy Eric Chapman, and I can remember Hank. Well, you probably remember Eric from knowing Mark and all them. I don't know if you from Mark McGahee that's his stepson. We were talking about. Yeah, we were talking about your wife's family and all, and so we recorded and shit. And I can remember the Chasing Victory guys who were Bailey Drive then. Coming over, and they had, they were only listening to, whatever was they were into during the day. They were very rapcore sounding back in those days, and they get embarrassed talking about it.
Yeah, but they kind of sounded like that Linkin Park kind of like mixed with a little bit of I don't know, like Blindside or something going on.
They sounded a lot like Blindside, which I love that Silence album. I was just listening to that album recently. And it's funny you said that too. There's so many side notes I could go off on tangents, but I actually went to go see POD with Jeremy and Jason and their dad, Mr. Terry, and there were a few other of our friends there then. But the opener, the headliner was POD, and Project 86 was playing, and the opener was Linkin Park. And that's
cool.
How long ago it was. Yeah,
I saw them with Blindside, and then their opener was Lacuna Coil.
Oh wow! Yeah, that's crazy. That band got really big.
They're pretty good,
and I liked a little bit of that sound and stuff, and I really kind of got out of the rap, anything with like rappy stuff in it. Not that I hate it or anything. It just really, I don't know. I kind of got. It
wasn't your vibe,
right, and which I still, the album that Project 86 was on, that Drawing Black Lines album, I still think
that's their best album.
Yeah, it's a great album.
That was the first screaming album that I ever got into.
Yeah. I was really captivated by their singer, Andrew Schwab. He was just like, his stage presence and stuff like really blew me away. And what's funny is Chasing Victory later on down the line wound up touring with them.
Oh, cool.
Which was like, for them, was insane. I know. I was real proud they got to do that. So, yeah, during all that time, we were all connected and stuff, and we did that demo and started playing shows, and fast forward through some shows, I got a little better at vocals, and I can actually watch the video of that show you're talking about, because I didn't I can remember watching it years ago. Somebody had it, and it was like, it's so hard for me to hear myself in some early shows because I was like, oh my Lord. And
yeah, you judge yourself harder than other people do, I think.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
And I mean, but those were good days, man. And so after we stopped doing When Tomorrow Doesn't Come, Hank and then our bass player at the time, Josh Pearson, it was us three, and we wanted to do something. And so they wrote some songs, and we called it Betrayed with a Kiss.
Okay.
And, yeah. And so we went, recorded, and
that didn't last long before you changed the name, though, did it?
Yeah, I would say probably 2 years.
Okay. I vaguely remember it, but what I really remembered was like from the When Tomorrow Doesn't Come and then With Blood Comes Cleansing. I guess because they're so similar and like the acronyms.
Yeah. And so we went to Valdosta to Lee Dice. He still records a lot of bands.
Yeah, he does.
And Lee was like,
Didn't he record From First to Last?
That's what I was about to say. That was kind of like what really put Lee on the map.
I met them. So there was a club in Albany. It was like a little Christian club, and the youth pastor said they could come play, but they couldn't say the F word. And the first thing that Sonny did when he got on the stage was say the F word.
Man, that's another crazy story.
But then I'm in the backstage in the green room because I went to work the snack bar because my friend's like, you can get in for free if you work the snack bar. I may have told this on another episode. I really don't care. I'm telling it again. Because I met Sonny in the back and I'm like, didn't know who they were. I didn't know they were cool. I didn't know they were supposed to be famous. I had no idea. And I'm like, so what kind of music do y'all do? And he's like, check us out on MySpace. And I was like, what's MySpace? I didn't know what MySpace was yet. I really hadn't seen it. I was like 19, 20. And he looks at me like, he said, are you playing with me? I was like, no. And he just looks at me and walked away. The last time I ever talked to him.
He's actually a really little dude, man.
Yeah.
I say little dude because he was so.
He's short.
And he's short. Yeah. A funny story about that. We Betrayed with a Kiss. We played that show.
Okay.
We opened.
I feel like I remember that because I think your bass player went to the same music school. Did he go to Parker's music?
At the time, our bass player
was he a blonde-headed guy with long blonde hair?
No,
no, it was a different band then.
Yeah. Our bass player at the time was Doug McMillan. And,
okay,
he's back. And so anyway, we played that show and had to leave because we were supposed to be in Chicago the next day to do a thing because we had just started touring. And,
that's awesome.
Too long before that, and we wound up not making it. We had a gas leak in the van. Anyway, we hear about, and anyway, the guy who put on that show, who was in charge of that show, was Dennis Frazier, who became our bass player in With Blood, and
he still plays with them, right?
No.
I'm out of touch, man.
It's easy to get. But Dennis, he was their guitar tech for a while and wound up becoming in our band later.
Okay.
It was real crazy to me how, like, especially Big Sonny got doing the whole Skrillex thing and all. And
seriously,
I can remember him riding with us to a show when we played at the Masquerade and stuff. And he was always. Honestly, that was always so nice and just a cool guy. So it was actually, if I make it to Furnace Fest this year, I'm going to try because Zayo's playing their Liberate album in its entirety. And so
that's amazing.
Yeah. I'll probably be crying. So
let's make sure you take some Kleenex with you.
I will, dude. I'd be so excited. I talked to Scott. I got to be friends with with him, and from basically stalking him when I was on tour, I found where they were at when we were in Pittsburgh and made sure I met them.
That's awesome.
Yeah, but
I met several people that I've admired that way.
What's that?
So I've met several people I admire that way.
Yeah, dude, exactly. I mean, that's what I'll go if I want to meet somebody in a band somewhere. I've made an I don't know what your profanity rule is, you know. But,
whatever you got to say.
You know, I've made an ass out of myself before, you know.
Yeah.
But I've never had anybody be rude to me. But I was like, I bet they thought I was kind of crazy because I would, you know, I just bust up in somewhere. I mean, hey,
same thing, man.
Meet you, yeah. It was like I was on stage. Maylene toured with Thursday years ago.
Oh, that's cool.
And I'm a big Maylene fan, you know. And so, Therese, she was a big Thursday fan, which I like Thursday a lot too. And then our friend Joe, and so we were standing on stage for Maylene, and then we got to stand on stage for Thursday, so it was real cool. And I was telling them, I was like, well, y'all want to meet Jeff, right? And they're like, Dean, like, I was like, I'm going to talk to Dallas. Y'all going to meet Jeff. And they were like, walking in their dressing room, you know?
Yeah.
And you know, and Dallas started laughing. He was like, y'all, this is my country friend from back. And like, and so they were so nice, you know, but I know they were thinking, who is this redneck guy coming in here, you know, because of my accent and all. And I'm just like, hey, man, they really like y'all and would really love to meet you.
Well, I mean, I got this thing where I'm in the front row. I always try to be in the front row when I go to a show. These guys are singing, screaming, and spitting on me, falling on my head whenever they don't stay on the stage. If I want to go say hey to them, I'm going to do it.
Yeah, man. And that when I was playing the show, I loved for people to do that. Not that we were at some kind of level to where we had to like fight people off or anything like that, but like it meant a lot to get to meet people. You know, I made lifelong friends doing that. So
definitely, and then also people probably tell you like how your music's impacted their life.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah,
and that was really cool. And I know we're bouncing all around, but anyway, Betrayed with a Kiss. We did that demo, and I did vocals. Josh and Hank both played guitar, and Hank did bass and drums, and so we did a demo, and then we added a guy named Daryl Bentley and Doug McMillan, and we started playing local shows. It was weird because there was a lot of styles meshed in there. Under Oath had recently changed their sound to like that Changing the Times album, which I love. And we all, at first I was like, I didn't know how I was going to take it because Cries of the Past like such a like influential
brutal album. Yeah.
Well, I still listen to it. And but I got to where I loved that album, Changing the Times. And so we had some stuff in there, like I can remember somebody yelling Under Oath at us one night when we were playing.
It's the metal version of Freebird.
Right. Yeah, you know, and because we had some like one song had a techno type beat in it, and before we, you know, started like the heavy part, and but there would be like parts that sounded like black metal, and then other parts that sounded like a little bit of like that emo with aggressive emo sound. So it was really all over the place a little bit.
Okay.
And so we were touring, and had an 86 conversion van at the time that we were using of our friend. I don't know how we made it anywhere. Daryl, our drummer at the time, he left, and Hank wound up going back to drums. We did some swapping and all, but we needed a bass player for a tour. And so I met these guys from Alabama, and I cannot think of that daggum band's name right now.
Were they little kids?
People, what's that?
Were they like little teenage kids?
No.
Okay, well, the reason why I asked is because there was this band that we had play at a show called The War Within.
I remember you talking about that.
They freaking loved you.
I remember those kids.
Yeah.
Talking about it. Yeah, I do remember them. Yeah. I couldn't tell you their names, but I remember
it was you guys in the showdown. They talked about y'all constantly, like they were modeling themselves after, but then they didn't sound like either one of y'all. They had their own sound. I wish they wouldn't have broke up.
Yeah, I remember that band name for sure. And it was crazy how you would meet like a lot of young kids that were so good. And
yeah, they were like 14, man. They rip your face off.
And so
some guys from Alabama though.
Yeah. The guys from Alabama, they were called Ascension and Escape. And
okay.
Their one guitar player, his name's Chris Cargile, who's now in Chasing Victory. They had another guy named Michael Sasser, who became With Blood's vocalist at one time, when I left the first time.
Okay.
And then they had another second vocalist, Jeremy Sims, who they called Chasing Victory guys, nicknamed him Goldberg. And
Goldberg. He's the bass player though, isn't he?
And With Blood?
Yeah.
He's a guitarist.
He's a guitarist. Okay.
Yeah.
I knew that's the guy I was thinking about when you said Doug earlier. I was thinking about Goldberg.
He and Doug both have a very similar like skin tone.
Okay.
Jeremy has like a lot of Cherokee in him. And then I don't know if Doug does or not, but they both have that very like kind of a almost tan skin, you know. And so I can see that being, even though Jeremy was kind of more stockier than Doug and but
he's fit now, you can say it.
Yeah. I couldn't think of the right word, but anyway, we needed a bass player, and I had met Goldberg through all that, and I asked him if he wanted could he come and learn the stuff and go on tour with us to fill in. And he did, and so we just decided, hey, why don't you be in the band with us? And so it went from there, and Hank was tired of doing it, so Hank stopped doing it. So we needed during that process, before, let's see, we did some switching around, and lo and behold, after some members, I remember exactly how it went. I messaged, there was another band called Betrayed with a Kiss, and I messaged. I
feel like I remember them.
Yeah, I don't remember a lot about them. I just remember us seeing them, and I messaged and was basically like, listen, you guys don't appear to be touring. We're a touring band, so we need you to change your name. Well, they turned it around on us, and we got basically something in the mail with a copyright. They went and copyrighted it, and so we needed a new band name. And Jeremy had a friend who was going to use the name.
So you're going to have to forgive me. You've been talking about your name was Betrayed with a Kiss, and then you said a name Betrayed with a Kiss, and that's why I remember hearing them, because we just talked about this a little while ago.
Yeah, that's who we're still
I can be a little bit slow.
Yeah. This is how With Blood came about. And,
okay.
And Jeremy had a friend who was going to use the name With Blood Comes Cleansing and didn't. And Jeremy was like, really like that name. And what was funny is I can still remember Andy, the vocalist from Plea for Purging. Andy was originally in a band called With Blood Beauty. And we met those guys playing in Nashville, this place called Rocket Town. Well, I told him, I said, we'll use that name. I said, but let me call. I was like, I don't think he'll care. I said, but I need to get in touch with Andy and make sure that he doesn't care if we use a name, because even though they broke up, it's like I don't want him to think we're ripping them off. And of course, Andy was cool as hell about it, and he was like, dude, I don't care. And so Jeremy moved to guitar at this time, and our sound started changing. It was heavy, but there would be some singing parts and stuff that all went out, and it went to, I'll have to say, man, like With Blood Comes Cleansing, like found the sound from when we switched from Betrayed with a Kiss to With Blood Comes Cleansing, that sound like Jeremy invented the sound for me. He and Josh, because Josh was there at the time, and they both wrote. And then after Josh left, Jeremy was really into Black Dahlia Murder. He was really into a lot of different bands, and Jeremy was. It was just like we used to joke around about him, because like he just could do anything he'd ever want to do, he could do, and nobody ever taught him guitar, and Josh was the same way, and they just became great guitar players. So anyway, we started playing under With Blood, and our sound got heavier, and that's when we started playing the Core in Columbus.
And I remember that place. I could not remember the name of it.
Yeah, that place was great, man.
It was fun.
And it just kind of went.
Our Finest Hour used to play when y'all played there. Remember that?
Oh yeah, and I can remember playing with
Samuel Sanders. Dude, Samuel's a really great dude, man. Whenever I was in Jacksonville, because he lives there, I had to go there for surgery because I had some issues with my stomach. And I was in the hospital there for a while, and I just told him that I was there, and he come up there and hung out with me for a little while.
Awesome. I haven't talked to him in a long time, but I'd love to see him. He's always been such a great guy. I can remember us staying with him in Jacksonville, and his parents were really cool too. And speaking of that, I was in With Blood for a bit, and then I left, and Michael joined, and Michael was all of our friend, and so after Michael left, they did the Golgotha album, and Michael decided he didn't want to do it anymore, and I missed it and wanted to come back, and so I came back, and then that's when we started, kept going and playing that, and then we did Sign with Victory and did Horror and all that. So, and we did some reunion shows several years ago where Michael and I both participated in it,
That's really cool.
Yeah, so it was it's funny because I mentioned that right with Samuel. I think Michael and Samuel hang out quite a bit because Michael and his family are in Jacksonville now. So.
Okay.
And
Jeremy Lowry from talk. I don't know. I'm out of the loop completely. I feel ashamed. Furnace Fest with Blood. Have they done anything with that?
They did play year before last. The same year Chasing Victory played, With Blood played.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. And that was with Michael.
Okay. And they're kind of back.
They're right? Back. It's funny. I don't keep in touch with them. But I did actually send a message to Jeremy and Scott the other day. And just congratulating them on the stuff they've done and all that. And yes, they, Michael did some stuff with them, and then they, if I'm doing, like I said, I don't keep in touch with them. But all I really know is Michael and I have messaged back and forth some, but Michael just he had a lot. Apparently, I think one of his kids is really good in sports, and so
you just don't have time.
Yeah, it's just a lot of time. And even though With Blood's not like touring or anything, they've still been doing a pretty good bit, and so he didn't want to take away from it. And I think the new vocalist name's Robert. I might be wrong on that. But he had filled in some, and they've brought him on, and they actually just did a full length album. So
wow, that'll be good, dude.
Yeah.
When y'all came the first time, I think I saw y'all when you came back to the band. It might have been with Michael before you came back. I don't remember. I do remember the back and forth a little bit in that time period with the change ups. But Scotty was in the band. He was the guitar player or the drummer?
Scott's a guitar player.
His brother
Spence. Yeah.
Spence. Dude, I think that he went to the Parkers and learned drums there when I was learning piano.
I got you.
And if he's really the same guy, we had a recital at the Methodist Church in Albany, and I'm up there playing for Elise. Then they had the rock band. They always did the rock band where everybody that played music would, play something together. And they played Freebird, and that little dude was like all over the drums. It was like the coolest thing I'd ever seen at the time. And he was still just as bad whenever he played with y'all.
You know what he's doing now?
Well, what's that?
There's a fame. She's actually pretty dang big. Ingrid and Andreas, I think is her name.
Okay.
And he's her drummer full time. But
oh, that's dope.
Yeah, before that, he was drumming for another country band, I think called the Seth Enos Band. But they toured. He went on tour. They opened for Tim McGraw.
What?
And Spence is living in Nashville and touring the world, man. So
that's really cool.
Yeah, I remember the first time he played for us to be in the band. He was like 5 minutes in, and we're like, yeah. and he wasn't but 16. I told him that I could. He was just like this little guy. I was like, I could just give him a piggyback ride. Dude, and I got some great memories with all them. It was, their whole family are great people. Their mom and dad, Spence and Scott's mom and dad, I don't know what we'd have done in a lot of the days without them. They helped financially, and we were always staying over there and practicing. And so, yeah, they're all really good people.
That's cool. That's good that they had parents that supported their dreams too.
Oh yeah, they had big time.
Yeah. For sure. So you after the music stuff, did you get into ghost hunting then, or had you always done that?
Well, it's kind of funny. You're going to get me nerding out on you now.
I kind of like this a lot, so I've been kind of more excited to talk about this than anything.
Right now, so. Yeah, it's funny how you and I have actually reconnected a little over this stuff.
I'll have to share my little story in a minute.
Yeah, you need to, because I love it. And so, yeah, I would honestly say I got fascinated with this kind of stuff. I can remember getting my first book when I was like 7 from the library. And then,
okay. I used to get those ghost stories from the library, yeah.
Books on the Loch Ness Monster and all that stuff, Bigfoot. And so I remember watching Unsolved Mysteries, and that was like, because of the music, it scared the hell out of me. But
of course.
But I was also.
You remember the Friday the 13th, not Friday the 13th, the Nightmare on Elm Street TV show?
Yes, Freddy's Nightmares.
On Friday nights or whatever. I remember being a little kid and that coming on, and then the hand coming out of the TV, I would run away from.
You can actually go watch all those on YouTube.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah. I haven't met many people that remember that show, so that's cool that you mentioned that, because I loved it. I still love all that stuff. And so I got into it some and all, and it's funny because when I was, we were recording horror, and we recorded in Northampton, Massachusetts, and Massachusetts is just so old, man. And
yeah,
all these towns built in the 1700s, and our merch guy was a guy named Jacob Weeks, who is just a nut in the best way. I mean, and he and I, he liked it too, and so we would get on this old website called the Shadowlands, and you could find haunted places in every state. You can go to this website, and it's so funny. It's like that old format from like a
Craigslist kind of website.
Yeah. Yes, exactly. And we found out about this insane asylum that was basically right down the road from us. And
you got to check that out.
So we snuck up in there one day, and got freaked out with, really just the wind, but we got, and so we've just found ourselves riding all around these New England back roads at night looking for haunted places.
Yeah.
And he and I would hit stuff up anytime we got a chance. And
that stuff holds energy, though.
What's that?
I said that stuff holds energy, though. Like the stuff that happens in there.
Oh yeah, and that was actually before I really knew that. I'd got introduced to one place called Sunland in Tallahassee. And it's been torn down, but it was an old hospital there that was a tuberculosis hospital and became like a place for mentally ill patients. And
okay.
And I got introduced by some buddies from Tallahassee, and I remember just how intrigued I was, and I put a hold on it for a number of years and stifled it because I had the conception that I was doing something wrong. With my in my faith at the time. Which a lot of people have this concept now, and that could be a whole deeper concept. I don't hold to this concept at all anymore, but I believe that it was all demonic stuff. And
yeah, I don't necessarily think it all is. It could, some of it may be, but I don't think it all is.
No, I honestly, like where I'm at now, I definitely think it is. There is, but I think that's more not now.
Yeah.
But
could be interdimensional though.
I agree. Actually, I agree with that a lot. So we can go that route too. But yeah. So fast forward, lots happened over the years, and even when I was still very much a Christian, I got into ghost hunting, and because I've told somebody this, I was like, there's very much plenty of room to have a faith and to be into that too.
Sure.
I was like,
yeah,
and there's no reason you can't do both. And I learned that later. And, fast forward to where I'm at now, I'm a very spiritual person. A lot of people, I'm no longer a Christian, and that freaks a lot of people out. And, it's not something I go, I don't necessarily broadcast that because I don't ever want to I guess I'm broadcasting it now, but I mentioned it on another podcast before, but I'd never want to discourage somebody from what they believe, and,
sure.
And I'm a very spiritual person. I still have a belief in a God and a creator. I just, I kind of believe that it's not my place, I don't know, to put God in a certain way. I think God can be God.
However God wants to be God.
Yeah. I can't tell the person who lives in a completely different part of the world that's having these amazing experiences that calls God something that I don't call God. I can't tell them they're not experiencing God,
Right.
And at one time in my life, I would have, at one time in my life, I would have said that people that practice quote unquote paganism or things like that were doing something satanic or whatever. And some of the most loving, amazing people I've met follow some of those traditions, whether it be, and so I got accused of myself here recently of practicing paganism, not too long ago, because I did some ghost tours and some investigations here in Camilla that went really well. Very haunted,
which is totally paganism.
Right. Yeah. I was like,
I consider it more of a scientific research.
Yeah. I didn't know pagans were into using motion sensors and ghost boxes and stuff like that. Okay. But it's like I told somebody, I said, well, some of the nicest people I've ever met are pagans. So I don't, and I don't know a lot of people that, but it's just kind of such a broad range. You know what I mean? Doing the ghost hunting thing, I've met people of all types of different beliefs. And so we can go whatever route you want to, but that's kind of how ghost hunting developed. And then I started getting equipment little by little for Christmas every year and stuff over the years. And of course, I love the TV shows that I got into. Certain ones I don't care for anymore. Some, I'm not going to sit here and call out shows, but I mean, ones that I do still like and watch. My favorite two investigators, and I think if you hadn't already watched them, you especially talking about interdimensional, are Greg and Dana Newkirk. And
haven't heard of them.
Oh man, I'm fixing to send you down a rabbit hole. Okay?
All right.
Yeah, you can go to it on YouTube, or you can go to it. The name of the show is Hellier, Hell.
Oh, no. I have. I just didn't know the names.
Oh,
so I watched some of that on Amazon, and I got a little freaked out.
crazy. What's crazy is I've watched that show or that series like maybe 3-4 times.
Is that the same one where they're like in that house? Or is it a different one where there's one where they're in a house and like they like do like out of body where they can communicate with each other in the house? Is that the same one as that?
The Estes method where one's got headphones on.
Mm-hmm.
Spirit box. Is that what you're talking about?
Maybe not. So there's one experiment where they went to this house. No, that was the house from the Annabelle thing. Where they went into and they were down in the basement and stuff. That's not the same stuff, is it?
No.
You know about that documentary?
There's several. I've seen one.
Okay.
Yeah, that. Man, there's so many different routes we could go here.
I'm just having a conversation. We can talk about anything.
I love it. I'm saying, you remind me of my brain. I'll bounce from one to the other. But Hellier, if you did see some of that, it's about Hellier, Kentucky is where that, and have you seen both seasons?
I have not. I don't think I watched all of the first one yet. I need to go back to it. I just get busy and don't keep doing stuff.
Well, dude, I would highly suggest you watching both seasons, especially when it ties into like things that happened in Point Pleasant, West Virginia with the Mothman stuff and all, because that's one of my favorite like things, and is that whole, and then Mothman gets in. You're in interdimensional talking about Mothman gets into some stuff like that too.
Okay,
and but Greg and Dana, basically, the stuff that starts happening in Hellier, there's so many synchronicities. It's like something's watching them.
Yeah,
and follow. And one of the things that happened to fans is fans started having synchronicities and weird stuff happen in their life. And I'll be damned if, like, the last time I watched that show, if I didn't have weird stuff start happening.
That's interesting. And, so the guys from Appalachian Intelligence, have you ever heard of them?
A little bit.
They were talking about that. That's how I learned about it. And they also experienced some synchronicities that I don't even understand what they're talking about because I didn't watch that much of it. I was kind of scared.
Well, you're in the Appalachians, right?
Yeah. I live right up close to the Appalachian Trail.
Yeah, dude. There's so much, like, I mean, I'm sure you know, but you're in, like, there's so much goes on there.
I'm in creeper territory, man. Dude, I went hiking at Springer Mountain, and I was by myself. It was around December, January. And there's a loop up there because that's kind of the official start of the Appalachian Trail. And I told this already on the podcast. I don't care. Somebody else can listen to it again. If they didn't listen to that other episode, they can go back and listen to that too. You haven't heard it. So there's a loop up there, and there's a parking lot. You got to drive up a ranger road to get to it. And there was this young guy out there. I didn't tell this part last time. I'll tell it this time. There was this young guy out there, and I feel like it was intended for me to go. This guy couldn't get his truck started. He had been out there for 2 nights, had gotten lost off the trail somehow, slept in a hammock, 28 degrees and below. Slept in a hammock, didn't build himself a fire. I was worried about the kid. He was like 21. He had a mental break from work and just like took off and just went up there. Wow. And like, I was like, dude, I helped him it was a diesel truck. He had flooded the engine. I helped him figure out how to get it started. I let him get in my truck. I put my coat on him. I said, get in my Jeep, warm up. We'll get you figured out. And then before he left, I said, dude, promise me that if you ever go camping again, that you'll learn a little bit of survival technique first. And he said, I will. So after I took care of him, I get my hike on and I go to this little monument thing where, like it's the official start of the trail. I took a picture. My condensation on my mustache is like freezing. It's so cold out there. There's ice on the trail. You have to be real careful not to slip off. And on the way back, I decided, you know what? I'm going to take the loop. I'm not just going to go straight back to the car. It's too short of a trail. So I went around. And then there's a part where you have to cross over the ranger road again. On the other side of that, I could tell nobody had been out there for a while. And I was like, this seems a little sketch. I don't know if I want to do this. But I did. And I seen some places where there was like some fur on the ground where it could have possibly been some wolves or something. So then I got a little sketched. So I kept going, and it's mostly uphill all the way around back to the other side where the parking lot is. I got tired, probably halfway. I probably wasn't even halfway, probably a quarter of the way around that side of the trail. I just got really tired. I'm carrying my backpack with all my supplies and water and snacks and everything I had taken with me. I was prepared that if I got stuck out there, I could take care of myself, you know. I like the hiking stuff, and I'm prepared when I go. So I had a lot of stuff in my pack, and I found this spot where they take care of stuff. Trees fall down, they cut it and clean it up and stuff. So there was a stump out there. I sat down, and the whole time I'm going downhill on the other side, I'm seeing things that's like, oh yeah, that looks like that could be a Sasquatch nest. You hear the little things, and I'm just psyching myself out, joking around. Yeah. And so then I get up there, and I don't see none of that stuff, none of those kind of signs, no twisted trees and all the stuff that you hear about, none of that. But what I did do is I sat down, and everything got quiet, and all the birds shut up. All the noises quit. And I was like, well, that's weird. But it didn't scare me, or nothing happened that made me feel like I should leave.
Yeah.
But then, I swear to God, it sounded like a baseball bat started hitting on a tree.
Oh.
It was like, and it started going, just going and faster, like aggressive, like this tree's getting demolished. I didn't even look around. I didn't run. I said, if this is a Sasquatch and I run, I'm dead. Yeah. So I got up, I picked up my bag, and I walked in the direction I had already been going, up the hill. And I never slowed down. I never stopped again. I was out of breath. I was tired. When I got back in my vehicle, I sat there for a good little while to just like breathe, because it took me another hour to get back to my vehicle from there. As I walked away from it, the intensity slowed down and the volume slowed down. And then it quit. I don't know that was a Sasquatch, but we went to the Sasquatch Museum in Blue Ridge, and they have sound bites of the whooping and tree knocking. Yeah. And so like when I listened to the tree knocking, my face went white. All the blood rushed out of me. And I told Rebecca, I was like, that's the sound I heard in the woods. And then I guess he's the owner or something, but he's standing at the exit of the tour. And he heard me say that, and he said, yeah. He said, they're out here. That was wild.
Man, that's awesome. I want to go to that museum. I know you probably didn't feel like it was awesome at the time, but I'm a little jealous, to be honest with you.
You're jealous of the tree knocking?
Yes.
Good grief, man. I honestly was kind of scared. Like, I've always thought, like, what would I do if I seen one? And I feel like I know now that I would die.
You've heard that it was funny. 2 fairly recent sightings here in Mitchell County. One of out in the country, one of the deputies actually posted it on Facebook, and everybody's like, ding, 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 and I got really excited. But yeah, I've heard people talk about it, and it just like changed their lives when they've encountered it. And I'm sure it would be pretty scary. I tell you what, I mean, Bigfoot intrigues me so much, but what scares me more is if you've heard any of the Dogman encounters.
Oh God, yeah, dude. There's this guy who he was in Pennsylvania. Now he lives in Knoxville, I think. The Confessionals podcast. He has hunted that thing.
Podcast.
Yeah.
I watched his documentary.
So what do you know about that guy, the Dogman?
Oh, the Dogman or the guy that does the confessionals?
No, the Dogman.
Man, yeah. Dude, all I know Can you give me 1 second? My cat's about to drive me crazy. I hate to do
Oh yeah,
this.
dude.
I'm sorry.
No, that's fine.
Okay. So I found out about Dogman just listening to I don't remember which podcast it was years ago. And I've heard so many different theories. Some of the sightings almost describe it as like a tall, kind of thin figure with like an actual like dog's head, kind of like the Egyptian god. I can't remember that god's name.
Anubis.
Yeah, kind of like that.
Yeah.
And then others describe it as this bulky, like werewolf type thing.
Right.
But I've never heard any story where there's been anything but sheer terror to do with it.
For sure, dude. I mean, that thing's probably only going to kill you.
Yeah. Bigfoot, you have like these really some scary ones, but a lot of them are like very like something wanting to interact. Sometimes even like curious and kind.
Yeah.
Sometimes.
Well, they even help children. They say.
Right. But these things,
I don't think the Dogman would help a child.
Yeah. And there's a documentary. There's this. They're called. You've probably seen their stuff, Small Town Monsters, and they do all kind of different documentaries. And they have one on the Beast of Bray Road that was happened in Wisconsin. I want to say in the 80s and 90s.
Yeah. I feel like I watched that one.
Yeah. And
did they also do one on the Bridgewater Triangle?
There is one on the Bridgewater Triangle. I don't know if Small Town Monsters did, but the bridge crazy too.
For sure.
The most recent one I watched on Dogman that Small Town Monsters did was about the land between the lakes in Kentucky. And there's a guy on there. He's a former law enforcement and worker and a former police officer. And on this documentary, he starts crying, talking about it. And because it messed him up. And they go to these spots on there. Shannon Legro, she has a podcast called Into the Fray. And,
okay. I've heard of that one.
Yeah, she's on several of Small Town Monster stuff, and she's on this one. And there's this so-called legend, but they think there might be some truth to it now, of a family who was killed in the land between the lakes camping. And there's all these rumors of Dogman sightings and all. And there's some people think that these creatures have actually killed people in this area. And there's something about Kentucky, man. Kentucky's got
Pikeville, Kentucky. Have you heard of Penny? Was it Penny Royal?
No.
There's your rabbit trail. Get that podcast and listen to it, and then come back to me.
All right. I love that. Yeah, man. I love that you're introducing me to this. It's Penny Royal, right?
Penny Royal.
Okay.
So it's about a bunch of conspiracies in this town where lots of strange occurrences happen, synchronicities, and they all line up. And it's like there's some odd, strange thing going on with like maybe the Freemasons in this town and like the power structure, but also some spiritual things and just a lot of weird stuff.
I'll tell you, I heard in Hellier season 2, they go into Kentucky and talk with some people. There's been some people that have claimed to have been abducted by cults in that area. And I think I sound like the same thing. There's apparently like people saying they're really high up, wealthy people who are involved in these cults, kidnapping women, and
they do get into some of that in there.
Yeah,
but it's a lot deeper than that.
Yeah, you mentioned free. I have a whole different opinion of Freemasons now. I used to think that Freemasons there was so much conspiracy behind it and all, and I don't. I'm not saying there's not in the origins and all and things like that, but like my brother's a Freemason here locally, and and these like those dudes get together and like cook Boston butts and and like do all this good stuff in the community and all. And I was like, there's some of those dudes are like huge in the. I mean, don't get me wrong, I'm just saying there's no way some of the people I know that are in it would be involved. My brother can't even understand.
Well, I feel like if it were as conspiratorial as it is said to be, people at the local chapters probably would never know it. If you know what I mean.
Right.
They're the ones that fund it with their dues, if that's the case.
Right. Yeah. And also it's like, my brother was like talking to me, and I think he was surprised at some of the stuff I knew, but he was like, Dean, he's like, we're not the Illuminati. I said, no, the Illuminati isn't the Freemasons. I said, they branched off from the Freemasons. He said, exactly.
And I feel like that's what what people talk about Freemasons, they're talking about the Illuminati.
Right.
Yeah.
And I think there's something to the Illuminati stuff to an extent. I do think that you can get so looking for stuff that you can find it.
Oh yeah.
Sometimes, and
you can see a triangle in every picture if you try to.
Right. Yeah. I mean, dude, don't get me wrong. I definitely think and you can get on the whole, UFO topic and things like that. But like, I definitely think there's 100% that there's, black ops and things like that people in our own government don't even have anything to do with and know that are doing things like and all these hives. I mean, that 100%. There's more and more stuff coming up.
Yeah. Like all those drones and stuff, like somebody knew what that was.
Yeah. To a guy, I don't know why his name's slipping my mind. He actually went on Dana Carvey and David Spade's podcast, but I've been watching this guy, Stephen Greer. And he's been a whistleblower since like the 80s or 90s. And but he was a surgeon and he's a scientist and he's been sharing things before a lot of it happens. He was saying that the drones were definitely ours, but become a bit of a smoke screen before something bigger. And he definitely believes in other like extraterrestrial life. He does, because he's seen things and experienced. He said that he also thinks that a lot of the stuff is man-made to try to take focus off, like that they even want us to think it's aliens, if that makes sense.
Well, I got a friend, Jeffrey Buggs, he was on my podcast, and he was telling me that he's friends with somebody in the FBI. Or not FBI, the Secret Service. And he swears up and down that Hollow Earth is real. And that aliens are actually from within. Is what he says. I don't know. You can never really know.
Yeah. There is a guy who, I can't think of his name. You could look it up. But he used to travel, and there's some documentaries about him. And I forget what he was doing, but he was military wise or scientific wise. I don't want to do a bad job of telling it, but he used to go around traveling, telling his story. And I mean, he had security clearance, all this stuff, but he claimed to have encountered a lot of like aliens underground.
Mm-hmm.
Of like, they're like getting caught in between, like a skirmish between them. And a lot of his stuff's on Amazon Prime and stuff like that. But years later, after he was coming out doing this and all, he apparently hung himself.
Oh, okay.
But the hanging himself was done with basically with catheter tubing.
Mm.
Who hangs herself like that?
Right.
And so he was obviously killed. And so, yeah, there's definitely a lot going on with that. I would have never thought that I would live in a day and time where the Pentagon will be openly talking about stuff like they are.
Right. A lot of people believe that something bigger is coming out. I've seen this, heard about this podcast called the Telepathy Tapes recently. So I started listening to that. And do you know what that's about?
Mm-mm.
So it's about kids who have nonverbal autism, and they can communicate with their parents. Like they can hear their parents' thoughts in their heads, but then they also can communicate with each other without opening their mouth.
I've heard about that.
they do these experiments where they actually prove that they're actually able to do this. You can't deny it. Like, there's no way that you could deny it unless the whole thing's a hoax. I don't believe that. So
no,
there's that. And these kids say stuff like, you can't do this if you would lie. You're not able to do this if you would lie. Or and they believe in God. They pray. They have love in their heart and in forgiveness in ways that we just couldn't even comprehend. Like, one of them had an abusive dad, and he could hear the evil thoughts that his dad had, and he still was able to love and have kindness in his heart even after all of that. I haven't finished it, but it's really cool. And there's that, and then, like, we were talking about interdimensional stuff. So, like, I'll tell about the shadow figure or whatever it was. So we were sitting at dinner one night, and that's the one I asked you about.
Yeah.
So we were sitting at dinner one night, and my son was like 4 or 5. I never talked to him. I was listening to stuff, like podcasts like Blurry Creatures, Appalachian Intelligence, The Confessionals, and there was one British one I can't find anymore. I wish I could. They might have took it down. But I was listening to stuff like that. So I knew about like Hat Man and Hags and, Shadow Man and Slender Man and all the things that people had, been seeing or whatever. But he didn't. I never talked to him I didn't even talk to my wife in front of him about anything like that. We're sitting at dinner, and then he says, who was that man that just walked through here? And I said, what? He said, that black man that just walked through here is like, I was like dark skinned black man, like you see out at Walmart black man? And he's like, no, he was all black. All you could see was black. I said, like a shadow? He said, yeah. I said, what happened? He said he walked in the back door and walked out the front door. And I said, when? He said, right now, while we're sitting here. I said, he just did it. He said, yeah. And then I was like, okay. I said, well, have you ever seen him before? He said, yeah, sometimes at nighttime he'll be in my room looking at me. And I said, he's looking at you. I said, where does he go in your room? He said, sometimes he stands in the corner and sometimes he's floating at the ceiling.
Dude.
And I was like, okay. So I believe in the power of prayer, whether it's intention or whatever it is. I believe that God gives us the power to vanquish these things.
Mm-hmm.
Because I do, like you, I believe that there is a one true God. Mm-hmm. And I still believe in Jesus. But, I don't, like you said, I don't force what I believe on other people. But we went to his room and we prayed. And I said, if you see it again, don't be afraid of it and tell it to leave and never come back. And then I messaged you about it. And fortunately for him, like, what you had given me was really I didn't need it anymore by the time I got it from you, because he did that. He said it came in his room and he told it not to come back. And it never did, according to him. And I've asked him about it again since then. Like, hey, you remember that shadow thing you told me about? Mm-hmm. Have you ever seen it again? No. Cool.
Yeah, I mean, this, but I mean, like, kids are way more in tuned.
For sure.
And I think that, the older you get, the more you kind of start getting blocked to it. And
mm-hmm. But is it interdimensional?
Right.
Is it spiritual? Is it time loops? So this is something I had an idea about, like maybe whenever you see a ghost or something or a shadow figure, you're actually seeing, like the wormholes. Right. Maybe you're overlapping on timelines, kind of like what happened in Interstellar.
Yeah, I mean, I still haven't watched that. I've heard a lot about it, and I need to
Yeah,
take
I
the
need
time
to see it.
Yeah, I'm definitely, I definitely prescribe to. I mean, we could. I don't know a lot of the terms. I mean, you were talking with your buddy, and he seemed on your first episode. He knew a lot of
He knows a
stuff.
lot about quantum physics, apparently.
Yeah, about quantum physics. Yeah, and I don't pretend about that, but I do know that they've proven a lot of stuff. And
there's an equation that they've worked on. I can't remember if it was Google. I think it was Google. They got that quantum computer chip, and they theorized that it is using every single timeline in every single like the multiverse, like all of the me's and all of the you's and all of the consciousness of existence through all eternity.
Yeah,
and figuring out like impossible math equations like that.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a mixture. I definitely think that a lot of what we're experiencing in paranormal is interdimensional. But I also think that it is the spirits of people who've passed on. I think it's, I mean, I had an encounter.
It would be impossible for it not to be some of that.
Right. And, I'll start with, like, I was on an investigation with some friends from Tennessee, the Tennessee Shadow Chasers, and they're predominantly women. And they're one dude, Bailey's, in there with them, and I've worked with some of them in the company that we work with that takes people on investigations, but they've got their own crew, and these women are badass. They'll go in anywhere. I mean, they're so. And you're not. I mean, they're in Tennessee where you are. I can introduce you. They love for people to come and go check stuff out. Yeah, they're awesome. And I'm actually supposed to go be with them in the end of May to do some stuff. And but they came to Cochran, Georgia. There's a jail there, in some Bleckley County Jail, and it's an old one. And some firemen there originally bought it and just for ghost hunting. And dude, it was so active at this place. I mean, we were getting all kind of stuff. Well, let me check because my battery is I want to make sure I don't lose you. So before I left for the investigation that night, from Camilla, my dad died in 2015. And so I'd had something happen the first birthday after my dad passed away. I was sitting there putting on my shoes before I went out to eat. And we played an old Conway Twitty song at his funeral. And so I was sitting there putting on my shoes on my birthday. This was, first birthday I had after he died. And all of a sudden I'm sitting there, and all of a sudden his funeral song just pops on the computer. And so iTunes wasn't open. It was on the screensaver, and I was like, and so like I called Therese to come in, and I was like, hey, and like, her eyes got really big, and I'm sitting there like, and there was no way that could have just happened like it did, and it was just like my dad saying happy birthday. It was it was a very cool experience. Well, in Cochran that night before I left, I said, well, Daddy, if you ever want to show up on any of these investigations, you can, Well, my dad was in law enforcement for years. He was an investigator, was his favorite job he ever had. Then he was in bail bonds for years. And so anyway, we're at the jail, and we're getting all this stuff, and we have one of those tripwires set up. I don't know if you've ever seen them, that picks up EMF, and it's like a line, like a whole line of different lights. And EMF is the only thing that will set it off. Phones and can't set it off with any. I think the ladies were telling me the only thing they ever saw set it off was they had some socks that had batteries in them. And they didn't have them this night. So we were getting hits on this thing. We were doing what they call the Estes method. which was originated by two of the guys that helped with Hellier.
Okay.
And I think, you know, what you take headphones and you're plugged in to a spirit box, and the person with the headphones is the only one who can hear what's coming through. And so they say out loud what they're hearing, but other people are asking questions. But the person with the headphones doesn't hear what the question is. All they're doing is saying what they're heing come through.
So that way you can kind of verify that they're saying what you're asking is right. Yeah, okay.
And so we were doing that with this thing called the Phasma box, which you can get on. It's actually a program you can get on certain tablets, and it uses reverb, and they use sound banks and stuff. And it's just crazy, the stuff that I've heard come through on this thing. Well, anyway, they're using it, and we're doing the Estes method, and we're sitting there asking questions and getting hits on this tripwire. And all of a sudden, the lady with the headphones on, she goes, "Who's Richard?" And I looked at him and I said, well, I said, that's my dad's name. I said, plus I also had my dad's old pocket knife with me that night. I never kept it with me, but, I said, but we're in a jail, you know, where a bunch of men were. And I said, that's a pretty common name. So,
sure.
You know, I always try to figure out the most common, you know, possibility first and debunk stuff. And so
that's what people don't realize is a lot of people that investigate ghosts are skeptical a little bit.
Right. Exactly. Yes. I try to be very skeptical, and I mean, to an extent, you know, and I mean, cause I try to put stuff, I try to make sure that it's nothing natural, you know, first. And
right.
So I was like, okay, that could be just a coincidence. That's a common name. Well, I'm talking to Erin, who's part of the group, and Erin is a sensitive. She has a legit gift. And she said, yeah, Dean, but that's kind of weird. We were just talking about your dad. I said, yeah, and then all of a sudden the lady with the headphones on goes, something investigator. And I said, all right, now that's weird. I said,
that is weird.
Yeah, I said, my dad's main job was an investigator. And, so then she's like talking about like Sally something. I was like, I don't know what Sally is, and they're like, no, like Sallyport. They said like where they bring them in prison. They was like, your dad was. I was like, yeah, that could be kind of what we're about. But all of a sudden she goes, as we're getting, I said, Daddy. I was like, Daddy, is that you? And when I said that, the light started blinking, and was answering, and I was like, wow. And then all of a sudden she goes, I love you. Like that. The lady with the headphones on said, love you. And my dad wouldn't, he usually wouldn't say, I love you. He'd go, love you, like that, you know. She said that, and like, I started getting a little emotional. And then all of a sudden she said, I miss you, like that. And when she said that, dude, I broke down. Like, I mean, I just lost it. And they all came to see about me. And so they were like, do you want some time to yourself? And I said, yeah. I said, give me a few minutes. And so I said, Daddy, are you here? And when I did, the whole strand of lights just maxed out. and when I was like, okay. And my mom, his fiance, Mr. Woody's the greatest guy in the world. And I told people, I was like, I guarantee you my dad would be so happy that my mom's with him. And because him and my dad would have been buddies. And so I was like, Daddy, I've been wanting to ask you something. And I was like, I feel like I know the answer to this. Do you like Mr. Woody? When I said that, they all just shot up and then lit up again. And I was like, okay. Well, I put the headphones on and listening for a minute. And this gets even a little crazier. I was like, did this really happen? All of a sudden I hear, hey, nephew. Well, my mom's brother, I'd spoke at his funeral about a year earlier. And he would say that to me and my brother. He would see us, and he'd call my daddy brother-in-law, and he'd call me and my brother. He'd say, hey, nephew. And so I was like, what? And I was like, Daddy, are you and Uncle Bubba hanging out? And when I said that, the lights just maxed out again. And I was like, I'm done. You know, and so I definitely through that and through some of the other stuff, I definitely think that there are, people's spirits that, whether they can go and come from somewhere or whether they're lingering here. I mean, I don't know, but I also am like you with the interdimensional, because there's this thing, they call them doppelganger spirits.
Yeah.
Where people hear like their own voice, or people have seen like a person who's alive. They're like, I just saw you. No, you didn't. I was, and so I think a lot of that's definitely possibly interdimensional type stuff or
Very
time.
well. Yeah.
And then I was talking about the Mothman. Everybody knows about the Mothman, but if you ever get a chance to check out the book, The Mothman Prophecies, I listened to the audio book, and if I need to shut up, tell me, because I'm just going on and on.
No,
I was listening to the audio book again a few years ago, and John Keel, who was the investigator, the stuff they experienced and there was not just seeing that. Yeah, they were seeing this thing, but that was when the first like real, that's when the whole Men in Black thing really started, was after that. Cause it happened beforehand, but that, people in the town were these guys were showing up in these black suits, threatening people, questioning them, because there was UFO sightings also pretty much nightly going on through West Virginia there. And so
don't really show that in that movie they made about it with Richard Gere in it.
Right. And which was a good movie. But and so John Keel, but he talks about in his book and a lot of different things, he calls them ultra terrestrials. And
I need to listen to that book.
Yeah. And
yes. Yeah, I think I might have lost you a little bit. Okay. Yeah, I'm still here. It's just a black screen. Let me see if I can figure out what happened there. I could just fix it post. You let's see what happened there. Something weird happened with the sound. Yeah, they're not happy with us. I might have to leave this in. This is too good. I'm going to run out the door if I hear something, say something that shouldn't be here. I mean, I can hear you, but there's a weird echo, and everything I say is like coming back to me. Why don't you leave the session and come back? Can you do that? No, you can't do that. I can stop recording and we could do a take 2. So yeah, it'll just be a second recording, and then I can combine the two. I'll hit stop, and then we'll try that.
I feel all bougie, man. I'm drinking my Perrier water.
I like Perrier water, dude. I actually started drinking Topo Chico.
Dude, that stuff's so good.
It's my favorite.
I love Topo Chico, man. It helps me not. I was drinking way too many Diet Cokes and stuff, and it gives me my soda fix.
Yeah, and then you don't get all the calories and sugar and all that.
Exactly, and I love Liquid Death too.
Oh yeah, I like the mango chainsaw one.
I hadn't had that one. I've heard it's good though.
It's pretty good.
All right, I'm ready if you are.
All right, so when we started talking about ultra dimensional beings, is that right?
Yeah, ultra terrestrials. Yeah,
ultra terrestrials. Then everything went AWire.
Right, that's just kind of funny.
It's kind of weird.
It is. That happens to a lot of people. But actually, I'm not saying it's anything, but I mean, I do know that people podcast and they start talking about certain things and weird stuff happens. So
every single paranormal podcast I've ever talked to, and mine's not necessarily a paranormal, mine's just a whatever I want to talk about.
Right.
But yeah, it always happens.
Yeah. I like it.
Now I feel like we're official on this one.
There you go. But yeah, the ultra terrestrial, and I might not do it justice. But I mentioned Silent Planet because I've listened to their vocalists a little bit in interviews, which they're a really good band. And he's an extremely good vocalist. But this past album they did that, what was the name of it? I don't know why I'm drawing so many blanks, but it's got
I'm about to look it up so we can.
Got the song Antimatter on it.
I freaking love it.
Super Bloom is the name of it.
Yeah.
And but a lot of it's about ultra terrestrials. He's really into a lot of that stuff. And so I was listening to him mention it, and
to hear him talk about it, like he combines it with his faith.
Right. Yeah. It's really cool. Ultra terrestrials basically being like in our world, but just almost almost a different dimension or different plane of exist, some kind of, and it almost kind of like they're watching, almost kind of like they're helping things unfold, that kind of thing. That, John Keel thinks a lot of, which I do too, that a lot of the stuff in the paranormal is all connected. And I do too. You know, you hear Bigfoot sightings and all, but yet at the same time, there are all these lights and orbs, and you have stuff
just at Mount Rogers. They got the I forgot what kind of lights it's called, but yeah.
And I mean, you mentioned the Bridgewater Triangle. Well, they had Chestnut Ridge is in that, and in Pennsylvania, and they, there's documentary about it. People were seeing what looked like Sasquatches coming out of UFOs.
That's crazy.
So I mean, I think a lot of it's connected, personally.
Yeah.
And I don't know, man. It's just, what do you think? You think anybody's time traveled yet? Probably.
That's a good question. I heard a lot about this one guy that supposedly did do so, but I feel like if he had, that we'd be in a better place than we are in the world right now. So I don't know that I think that anybody's traveled back in time to us.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't necessarily think anybody has, but I don't know. It's
unless there's some kind of strict rule where they just don't do nothing.
Right. I mean, it's hard to comprehend in our minds, even though I know physicists and stuff have shown, wormholes and how time's can be bent and all that. And
that could be what the UFOs are. They could be time machines. They could be coming back here and studying what people used to be like.
Who knows, man? I mean, really.
I've never had that thought before, but you just made me think it.
Yeah. Well, if you watch The Secret of Skinwalker Ranch, which is an incredible show, have you watched that?
I've watched an episode or two. Like I said, I'll get into something and then I'll just get busy and I won't even keep watching.
If there's anything, in my opinion, that can show.
And Skinwalkers scare me a lot.
Yeah, well, Skinwalker's just a minute part of it, dude. This past season, the stuff they've had happen even to them on there. I mean, and these are legit scientists, you know, a lot of them. And I mean, they, in this mesa they're digging in, they found debris of something, and it's the same material that was on the space shuttles to keep it, you know, I mean, just, and then they've done all this LIDAR and stuff like that, and they're showing what looks like a wormhole coming from, I mean, and up from the ground.
What?
And, yeah, and then they're seeing these lights go into the side of the mesa and then come out the other side. And they sent a balloon up in the air, and it just sticks, like it lands on something that's not even like invisible. It's not blowing, it's nothing, it just stops.
Yeah.
I mean, they're talking about interdimensional wormholes and stuff on this show because they're seeing evidence of it.
What?
Yeah,
I need to look at it again.
Yeah, dude, it's insane.
Yeah.
And so
the reason why skinwalkers scare me so bad is because when I was a kid, you know, my daddy was a pastor in the Church of God denomination.
I didn't realize it.
Yeah. And so then, like, he had this friend who was like, they called him a district overseer. So, like, there was like one church that would oversee a few others. And so he, they used to work in New Mexico on the reservation out there doing mission work. And they would talk to my parents about some of the stuff that had happened. And they talked about skinwalkers. And I was like freaking 8 or 9 years old. And then fast forward a few years, they had pastored this other church in Hazelhurst, Georgia. And then my dad went and pastored there after he had pastored there. So their youth group had went on missions trips out to the reservation. And they probably were lying to me. But they started, the youth pastor, like, he's a squatcher, and he liked to tell ghost stories and all this stuff. So like he starts talking about the skinwalkers, and he starts telling me that they're in the van one time and just riding along, and a skinwalker just comes running up beside the van and turns and looks at him dead in the eyes. And I'm just like, 15 years old, I don't want to go camping with y'all anymore. They really freak me out. I can't. It's fine. No. I'll put a picture up of you for this part, I guess. No, dude. Yeah, I'm kind of not happy about talking about it right now. I'm kind of mad at myself. I live near the Cherokee National Forest. No, bro. Well, what else can we talk about here? I feel like we kind of capped it there with that story about your dad. I feel like that story about your dad was pretty epic. And I was kind of going to end it right there whenever we started talking about that, but then you started talking about the Mothman, and then you started talking about the other stuff, and then the technical difficulties popped off, and I was like, oh, well, this is kind of cool. I don't know why we're having such technical difficulties, but we'll roll with it because usually when that happens, something good's going on. So yeah, but actually, yeah, we can wrap it up, and we can catch up later. I'd like to do it again with you. Honestly, I had a good time. Me too. Me too. For sure, man. Thanks for coming on. And do you got anything in the works right now? We'll have to do that next time. Yeah. Mm-hmm. No. Okay. Okay. Have you heard of the Sensabaugh Tunnel? It's close to Johnson City or Kingsport or somewhere. That's why you didn't want to leave the door cracked behind you while we were talking. Oh, okay. Cool, man. Well, I really appreciate you being here, everybody. This has been Dean Atkinson. He's a legend. He's one of the founding members of With Blood Comes Cleansing, one of the people that introduced me to heavy music, the heavier music. And it's an honor to talk to you tonight. And I definitely want you to come back and hang out. Absolutely, brother. Love you.